This kind of money coming down from a source like this tells me that they want to influence an election where they really don't care about the public policy of the election. They just care about Rob Astorino winning. So anytime Rob Astorino says, I'm independent, I disagreed with Trump, it's a lie. He is getting funding from the exact same people that made Donald Trump president.
And I expect to hear that a lot more between now and Election Day. Things getting nastier by the hour in the Westchester County exec race. That George Latimer, as we told you about, hammering Astorino, and his alliance with controversial conservative donor Robert Mercer's $1 million contribution to a pro-Astorino super PAC. Again, we're talking about a county executive race, $1 million thrown in this close to the election. Now, they're paying for the attack ads against Latimer. So in addition to being a major donor to Trump and an investor in Breitbart, that's right, the same Breitbart, Mercer has reportedly made a lot of offensive comments. I don't have enough time for them, so I'll just give you some of the highlights, lowlights, depending on your perspective. Civil Rights Act, he said, was a mistake. African Americans, he believes, better off economically before the civil rights movement. And there are no white racists in America today, only black ones. Well, yesterday, Andrew pressed Astorino if he would distance or disavow Mercer and his donations. I'll give you a hint. He didn't.
Would you care to distance or disavow yourself of Mr. Mercer?
What do I care what they do? I mean, anyone can support anybody, and that's what America is all about. I was just as surprised to see it as anyone else, so it makes no difference.
You're comfortable with it? A man who has said reportedly that the Civil Rights Act was a mistake, that African Americans better off financially before the Civil Rights Movement, no white racists in America today, only black racists?
Well, nice try, but those things I don't agree with.
You talked about groups on the left, but they're not donating money to your campaign or in support of your campaign. Robert Mercer is. You're comfortable with that support given his position?
People can give to whomever they want, and they could give to outside groups, which is what they're doing.
Okay, so in the end, he'll hold his nose. He says he's not beholden to Trump. I asked him during the debate if Trump volunteered to campaign with you in Westchester between now and Election Day, would you welcome him? And he very artfully avoided that answer. I'm curious what the real answer would be, though.
No.
Probably. What, you don't think he would want Trump to campaign with him?
I think he would not want Trump anywhere near him.
I think
his
you're probably
only
right.
vulnerability here is that in a Democratic county, enough Democrats who hate Trump turn out to beat him. This is a 2-to-1 Democratic county. He's hanging by a thread. He's getting $1 million of late money from organized people who don't invest where they don't have to.
But let's be clear.
Come on.
This guy's won twice in a 2-to-1 registered county, okay? And he won comfortably the last time around. All right?
Without doing any of this stuff, without the $1 million, without the attack ads, he won comfortably because he was
You are very
ahead.
much gliding over the fact of what we led the show with. Certainly, no candidate in the free world would ever want that headline going into November. That all of a sudden you got to answer questions as to who were you with in London, why weren't you there in Albany, and what were you exactly doing?
I wasn't celabrating the
No,
headlines.
I know you're not, but I'm saying
they're not good for him.
That's not a just. Other than that, how was?
But I know you keep going back to the Latimer situation and what's going on in his personal life. I keep thinking about that interview that I did with Astorino yesterday and the comments from Robert Mercer and go back to what Trump said after Charlottesville and there's a similarity there. I mean, these are horrible things that Robert Mercer has allegedly said. Rob Astorino was stuck in the middle, couldn't condemn them and turn off the spigots to the money that he apparently needs as we're closing in on Election Day. And on top of that, but he also wouldn't embrace them the way that you thought that he might. I mean, it really sort of put him in a difficult spot, and he hasn't quite addressed it.
Go back to the fundamentals. Why is all this happening? It's happening because you got a neck-and-neck race where people are caught in having to do things at the end that they wouldn't normally do. Rob Astorino has cultivated a nice guy image very effectively, and that's evaporating.
I can tell you one update that we just got right now. Two things. For those of you watching us on Files 1 in the Hudson Valley, George Latimer will be here on our air at 7:45 tonight. He's coming into the studios. And among other things, I'm sure he'll address the recent controversy, but he's calling on Astorino to resign given the testimony that Andrew just said that happened at the Reshnitz case. And he says, and I believe he'll say this on the air, it's part of a broader pay-to-play arrangement here between the county executive and others, as they say. stay tuned. It will be a fascinating final 2 weeks or less than that till the campaign. All right, another huge story in our region happened, and I'm going to pivot now to Long Island. The DA in Suffolk County, let me repeat that. The district attorney in Suffolk County has just announced he will step down. That one day after he was indicted, the DA himself, on witness tampering and obstruction charges. You probably know where this story stems from. Tom Spota issued a statement announcing his resignation, but he didn't say when he would step down and didn't speak with reporters today. Spota had already declined to seek another term, and his name will not appear on the ballot next month. Suffolk's executive said Spota lost the credibility to continue on the job.
We are in a position now where you're looking at essentially criminals in charge of prosecuting and putting away criminals in this county. That is unacceptable.
Spota's indictment, along with his chief of investigations, it all stems from the same case that led to prison time for James Burke. That was the Suffolk's former police chief. Burke's cruiser broken into. The thief took sex toys, pornographic materials inside of said officer's cruiser. After they caught the thief, Burke shackled him and beat him in the precinct house, then tried to cover it up. For that and more, he's serving 46 months in prison. Spota's indictment was for also trying to help cover up the beating, including inducing and trying to coordinate false testimony. So this is going from ugly to worse. I mean, the DA, the police chief, the head of investigations, all in on this. My God.
Well, it's the cover-up, as they always say.
Well, the crime was pretty bad, too.
No, the crime was a cover-up.
Yeah.
The
crime was also beating a guy in a precinct house.
That guy's in jail already.
Right.
Spota's not accused of beating
No,
up
I understand
anybody.
that. But the crime always worse, the cover-up always worse than the crime. Well, crime was bad,
You know,
and then the cover-up was...
I never like to see a cop indicted or convicted, but when it's the DA, it's something different. There is a special responsibility when you're indicting other people.
Yep.
And that's why I think this one makes your teeth grate a little bit.
And we talked about this with the attorneys I had last night. One of the consequences of this is, what about all the pending cases? What about even potentially other cases that this chief was involved in whatsoever? I mean, there's going to be tons of calls for opening up cases or dismissing cases or whatever else. This has impacts far beyond the principles I just mentioned.
There's the tawdry details and the specifics of what happened. And then there's also, these entities are supposed to work together but work separately. And clearly, if they're all working together to cover up an incident that happened, that says to me that it's going beyond just normal operational workings.
And I'm hearing from people off the record that this was systemic. This wasn't just limited to this one single incident.
There's a long history in Suffolk County of DAs who were politically active and eventually lost credibility and their positions. I hope no one's guilty of any crime. I never like to see it. But a federal indictment like this is not, as we say, chopped liver. And when he resigns in the face of it, it is possibly because he can maintain his pension if he leaves office in good standing rather than after conviction.
I will also use this opportunity to bring up my longstanding concern that DAs and prosecutors probably shouldn't be elected, that maybe that's not the best way to get justice and make sure that they're doing their jobs right, so that they're focused, judges either, so that they're focused on actually dispensing justice and doing that as opposed to what's in my best interest.
And so everybody knows it's an open secret, and was that there was a simmering feud here between the DA and the county exec long before the indictments came down here. So this all plays into this, as they say, a hot mess. All right, coming up next, President Trump announces his plan to deal with the opioid epidemic, but critics, and there are many, say the words are good, but it falls well short of actually dealing with the crisis. And also, it's yet again another promise that he made on the campaign trail that he's not delivering on.